Good morning. Here I am in a new setting. This is my apartment, and this is the start of a new day in my video making. Since I saw you last, I have come to the decision to cut Doc loose from being on my videos and making them in his apartment. I felt that he was so opposed to a lot of my thinking and ideas that he was no longer a sort of a, he's always played the role of kind of being a devil's advocate, you know, bringing up. And but lately it's been more like we just disagreed. And so I made a video for his channel, MD Doc, where I told him what my decision was. And I told him that he should concentrate on his own channel, make videos where he is expressing himself. And if he agrees or wants me to be a presence on there sometimes, why, that'll be fine. But I decided that I had to do something about his presence on my videos because I just wasn't happy with what he was saying and how he was acting. He was too irritable, too denigrating, I thought, and so I didn't want to fight with him on there. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. I didn't want to. So anyway, here I am making my first video independently, and I'm going to try to get other people to come and share spotlight with me. And one of them is my son Raymond. Now I talk to Raymond nearly every day, and he is one of the most lucid people that I talk to, and we agree on a lot of different issues, and we disagree on some. But he's sober, completely sober. He believes in sobriety. He's had a drinking problem, but he's finally got to the point where he doesn't want to go down that road and destroy some of the, well, when he does, he's a binge drinker, and when he binge drink, there would be problems. So I just didn't want to, you know, I wanted someone who wasn't resistant to the idea that addiction is a problem and you need to do something about it. So I hope that he'll join me, and there's other people that I'm hoping to have join me. But when I want to talk about issues, I hope that I can do it independently. This has been my reading the last few days. John Adams by David McCullough. Now this is a well-known biography that won the Pulitzer Prize, but it just deserves it. I thoroughly enjoyed this biography. I'm a reader, and I have been a reader for many years. So that's what you can expect when I talk about what I'm thinking about. And oh, this book, in it, he said, the biographer said that in his research he found 4,000 letters that were written between John Adams and his wife when he wasn't there. 4,000 letters. So he was a big letter writer. And also he said he published some excerpts from, he said, the most notable correspondence between two ex-presidents, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. John Adams wrote sometimes 4 letters to Jefferson's one before he would get an answer back. But they were discussing having been presidents of the early nation right after Washington. Adams was the second, and Jefferson was the third. And a sore spot for Adams was that he only served 1 term, and then Jefferson ran and managed to come up with the presidency for this. So he only served 1 term. Washington, of course, served 2, and then he retired. So, I'm reading about what went on in those times, and reading, there's a lot of excerpts from Abigail's letters, because John Adams spent quite a few years in Paris, and he even took their oldest son, John Quincy Adams, who became the 6th president of the United States. And I doubt that he could ever have become president material if his father hadn't taken him to Europe and put him in school over there where he learned languages, and he was seeing who his father was associating with and going to court and seeing the king, and he was over there before Marie Antoinette was killed, and Louis the King the 15th, and this was just before the French Revolution. So there was a lot of action in this book that I'm trying to wrap my mind around. And I love reading detailed books about what was going on in history, what has led us to what we have come down to, what happened then. There's a lot about slavery, because both Washington and Jefferson were plantation owners, and they had slaves. Adams was able to talk about, John Adams was able to talk about it very well because he never owned a slave. But Jefferson there's an excerpt in here where Jefferson talks about how corrupting the whole business of slavery is, and how it just wasn't right. But one reason they kept talking about forbidding slavery, doing something about it then, but they were afraid that the stability of the country, and that I always wondered about that. Why did they let this go on? And they were afraid that the stability of the country was at stake, and that it would break apart, and it probably would have done, with the southern states or the slave-owning states seceding from the Union. And their purpose was to keep the Union strong until they could deal with slavery at a later date, because they recognized that slavery was a very, very troubling issue. And they would even comment and say, well, here they were fighting for their own liberty from England, but yet they were still tolerating slavery. And that there was a number of mentions of how troubling this was, to be fighting for freedom for everybody but the slaves and the blacks. So oh my gosh, to me, I love history so much, because with a good you need someone who's a very good researcher in order to try to picture what was going on there. And since I was raised in a very primitive surroundings, I can relate a lot. I was still in the horse age. It was still a horse age. And in those days, of course, it was the horse age. And also diseases. Oh my word. When you read about early history, you think, how did those people ever survive? I mean, at first the capital was in Philadelphia, and yellow fever would strike there. And they didn't know then that mosquitoes spread yellow fever. So it would just be devastating in the capital. And then there was just, of course they didn't have antibiotics, and they were always getting deathly sick and almost dying, and some people would die of pneumonia. John Adams had a son who was an alcoholic, and he died in his 30s of alcoholism. So he was contending with alcoholism right in his own family. And then he had a daughter who developed breast cancer. And she was treated by his friend, a famous physician whose last name was Rush. And he operated on her, but the cancer came back and killed her. So, you know, just getting in mind how our country evolved, how it developed, is to me a very, a great experience. I mean, I just could hardly lay this book down. I'd just read until my eyes wouldn't read anymore. And I could hardly wait till the next day so I could read on this again. Because when you get a book like this, that so much work and care has been put into it, it's just a treasure. It's just a wonderful thing that you don't even want to end. And I wish I could go out tomorrow and find books of this caliber that would interest me so much. But I've got other books here. I've got other books lined up that I'm reading. The Walk West. I liked his Walk Across China. And I've got a book here about newspapers. This is called Privileged Son, Otis Chandler, The Rise and Fall of the LA Times Dynasty. Because I lived in LA 6 times and read the Los Angeles Times. So I'm always fascinated with newspapers. I've always regarded myself as the watchdog of the press. And so this is why I talk so much about what is in the newspaper. And I noted that in this book of John Adams, there were papers then that he read regularly, and they were famous at that time. The newspapers, and he talks about how the campaigns got very bitter and heated, and there's a number of famous figures of history like Alexander Hamilton, who was killed in a duel, which they were still having. In fact, the Southern culture believed in duels, and Alexander Hamilton was killed in a duel by Aaron Burr. And Aaron Burr's fame is partly because when he came back to Congress, or to serve his country, I forget what he was, either he had been named to the cabinet or something. I can't think just now what it was, but when he came back after he had killed Alexander Hamilton, who had also served in the government for years too, he was called a murderer and a traitor. But so Aaron Burr, that's always been around his name. But anyway, I'm hoping that that this is going to lead to some very interesting videos, more, and but I just wanted to talk to you from my new setting with going it alone and then bringing people in to be creative partners with me in order to see if we can't make videos that are even more interesting and arresting. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again and lining up some people. So, or if I get very steamed up about something, I'll be talking to you then too. So thank you, and until then, bye.